Welcome to the leading podcast for long-term weight management. Subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jenny on all social media channels. You can also sign up to the newsletter to receive frequent content and tips for weight loss success.
Hey guys, welcome to the latest episode of the Power Over Food podcast. I'm your host, Jenny McDonald. I hope you're great. I hope life is treating you well. So today I'm excited again because I have another guest with me. I met this lady, this amazing lady, about 4 weeks ago. We connected at a Restival event as I connected with my last guest, Kat. And this lady was so much fun. And we had such a giggle just taking part in her talk, her presentation. Felt very, very silly, but it was all good. All kind of a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I loved it. And I was so inspired that I just thought I really would like to bring this lady as a guest on the show. So here we are. Em Stroud is a corporate clown coach for the brave and the curious. She is a published author, a trained actress, a podcaster, and one of the co-founders of Laugh, Think, Play. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Emma.
Thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited on this lovely warm day. So I always ask our guests to just start off with a little bit about yourself, your story, and how you come to doing the work that you do, because it's such great work, but obviously there's a huge backstory behind that, and I'm sure it's not what you've always done. So I'm literally just going to hand over to you and let you go for it.
Well, I mean, it's been a sort of, I don't think anybody sets out at the age of 15 to become a corporate clown coach. It's sort of not there on the sort of the normal job spec, shall we say. But I have always been fascinated with sort of business and performing. And so I guess where I am right now, as I sit here today on this very hot day that we're recording this, I've kind of got to a place where I really put both of them together. So I've always been fascinated with performing and doing theatre. So I'm not only a trained actor, I've done improv for 20 years. I've run theatre companies and performed around the world at Edinburgh Festival. I've had solo shows just off the West End. And I love that part of me, but I also have always loved business, and I've always loved entrepreneurship and the idea that I can create my own world. And I guess my dad really sort of showed me that, because my dad was an entrepreneur way before it was cool to be an entrepreneur, so he kind of demonstrated to me, it was like, oh, you don't have to go on a conventional path. And so I studied theatre and then ended up going to drama school. But also while doing that, I also set up my first couple of theatre companies. And I used to sell lots of crisps as well. So at one point I was a sales rep. That was when, I know this is a food related podcast, that was when I put on a lot of weight, because not only did I sell them, I also ate a lot of them. Such was the thing of having lots of crisps in my car all the time. And if I sort of fast forward, I've always been fascinated in people and how do we become the best of ourselves. I mean, most of my theatre shows explore those kind of ideas. And then within the business world, it's always been, so how do we show up as all of ourselves? How can we be the best of ourselves in all the different situations? And that's led me to explore coaching. It led me to become a trained hypnotherapist because I find language fascinating. And I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago that I reconnected with clowning. Now, I know lots of people, I always think it's important to kind of explain what a clown really is, because unfortunately at the moment, in the world, especially within the UK, we use the word clowns as quite a derogatory term, and we're particularly using them at our particular government at the moment. And actually that drives me insane, because clowns, we've been around for as long as time has. So if you kind of think more the Shakespearean fool or the court jester, we are in essence the truth tellers, and we use kindness and humour to say what's really going on. So we're the observers of life and the truth tellers, and clowns are, they're worldwide. And if I say to somebody who comes from most countries in Africa and I say I'm a clown, they instantly pretty much give me massive respect because they understand the craft of it. Whereas us Brits, quite often we're terrified because of all the horror films and things like that. And when it sort of started to change in the 60s. So that's kind of where the clowning sort of comes from. And I'm in this beautiful place now where, as you very kindly said in my intro, I've just co-founded a new, what I want to be a global movement, which is, in essence, I want to get the world to laugh more, think more with kindness about themselves and each other, and play more. And obviously, when you and I met, I was talking predominantly about play and how I think it's so important that us as adults give ourselves that permission to play more. And partly because of my journey of being a clown and an improviser, play's always been at the heart of my work. And I witness so many adults, it's something that, I only do that with the kids. And if I even do it with the kids, I'm still doing it when I'm sort of looking at my phone. And it's like, actually play can give us these pockets of joy, which I think, considering how many challenges there are in the world, for me, play is the easiest antidote to it. It's like, here we go. There is all of this stuff that we can't control, but we can control what's going on in our own world. And so in a short, couple of minutes, there's how I've ended up being where I am. There you go.
Yay! I love that. You use the term play. Something I've used a lot with my clients is being in free child. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Eric Byrne and the games that people play in the ego states, but he talks about being like in an adapted child where we do everything to please other people, the rebellious child where we're obviously going, I'll stuff it, forget it, it doesn't matter, I'll just do it anyway, and free child. And when I kind of do these charts with my clients, their free child is like so tiny, if at all present, because they just don't allow that time to just be a little bit silly and just have a little bit of fun. So yeah, play. Yeah.
And there's so much fear, isn't there? There's so much fear, and how I play will be different to how you'll play, because you and I have had different experiences, right? And I always think it's really important to say, just because I play in sort of the impro and the clowning world doesn't mean that that's what I mean by play. Play could be anything from, I don't know, picking up a paintbrush to gardening to going fishing to craft things. It's those activities where you're so 100% present, and then you allow nothing else is going on in your world. And then you are just, I love that thing about that whole free child piece. It's like, you're just there doing it, which when you watch kids, which we all were, that's exactly, we all know how to do it, but we all will just play in different ways,
Yeah. Well, the perfect example today on such hot day is the kids in the paddling pool and you just going and joining in because you're so hot, and then you just get really silly and you end up in a water fight and you're throwing buckets of water over each other and you just don't care. You're not thinking, oh no, I've got a client later, I need to wash my hair or whatever. You're just like, oh, this is just pure, a wonderful moment, because you're just free. I think we've kind of covered this, but what I was going to ask, what is so powerful about what you do, but maybe you've got a story or something you can share that just shows the real essence of how powerful kind of this work is for you.
I mean, I've got loads, as you probably imagine, but there's one woman that really sticks in my head. And I do a lot of speaking, so I speak around the world about this. There was one woman, and this was quite a small group, so I'm very lucky. I get to sometimes go and speak to sort of rooms of just CEOs, and they're quite often small groups because they meet together and have sort of mastermind-esque groups. And I remember this woman, she was in her early 50s, and she talks about this, so I'm not breaking any confidentiality, just need to let everyone know that. When I walked in, and I quite often get this response, quite often I get absolute fear on people's faces, I get terror on people's faces, and I get, how can I possibly get out of doing this, because this is absolutely out of my comfort zone. This woman was probably one of the most extreme versions of fear I've ever seen. And as it transpires, and we started playing these games, so I quite often lead people through sort of little impro games, and I always do it at the pace where the group's ready. And so they start off quite gentle and quite safe for me and for them. And you could see this woman, like her whole body language was tense. She didn't want to be there. She was almost sort of making her way out of the circle, even though she was in the circle. And then she was watching all of her friends. And then she had a moment to spite herself where she giggled. And that moment when she giggled because she did something slightly silly, you could see that her sort of mask started to go down. And she just started to go, actually, maybe this is not so bad. Actually, maybe this is okay. Maybe I could do this. And for me, I'm always about safety, and it's always about how could you open up the idea of the possibility that play might help you. So you're not saying you have to play all the time, not saying you have to be silly all the time or get play right, but it's about the possibility. And I watched this woman, and then we had a coffee break, and then we came back, and she sort of looked at me, and we were all having a conversation. I was like, so how's this all making you feel? And then she stood there, and then she burst into tears. And as she burst into tears, she just was like, I'm so sorry. Now, unfortunately, such is the world that we still live in, she was the only woman bar me in this group of CEOs. So I think there was also that challenge of like, I don't want to be a woman in business and crying and all of those. So all of those masks, all of those challenges are going on. And she just went, I haven't played since I was 8. And I've just realized that since the age of 8, I haven't played. And she just went, what have I been doing? I have got a successful business. I've been doing all of this stuff. And she just went, but I haven't felt this joy since I was then.
Wow.
And then from that conversation, other conversations from some of the men were like, yeah, me too. And I'm worried about getting it wrong. And I'm in this position of seniority. If I start being funny or silly and all of these things came out. And I said, so for you, what would you do? What would play look like? And she just went, I don't know. And I was like, well, why would you know? You're like in your 50s. You've had 50 years of not playing. I said, but how lovely would it be if you just let yourself try different things with an openness and a curiosity? And she went, yeah. And I said, so with that in its head, not saying you're going to do it forever, you're just going to try it. What would you do? And she's like, I've always wanted to play the guitar, but I've always thought, well, I can't because I'm not a musician. I was like, okay. And so she now, fast forward, we're still in touch. She actually ended up selling her business, which was great. But one of the drivers of her selling the business was she wanted to reconnect with her own joy. She's now had weekly guitar lessons and is playing the guitar. She's also doing painting and other things. And she just went, that moment of me realizing what life is actually about. And she's like, and life hasn't suddenly all just become play, Em. And I was like, of course not. It's not what I'm suggesting anyone should do. She just went, but that moment where you opened up my door so that I could make the choice to walk through, she said, it changed my life. And for me, when I witnessed that, or if I go back to when you and I met at the Restival, which was a great day, witnessing, 40, 50, predominantly women, sitting there, going through their own doors and their own realizations that it's very easy to get very heavy in this world. It's very easy to be very downbeat. And don't get me wrong, I have been there. I've had my mental health challenges. I've had a pretty tough childhood. I understand. In no way am I diminishing, and no way am I diminishing the challenges that we're all living through right now. However, how we choose to show up to those challenges, that we are in charge of, and allowing ourselves those moments to go, yeah, I'm going to play with the kids in the paddling pool for 10 minutes, rather than going, I better put the wash on. Doesn't matter. You don't have to put the wash on right now. No one's judging you, but your kids and you will remember when you go out and you laugh and then you play.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel quite emotional because connecting back into my listeners, you can see how when they're just not allowing that in, they're not allowing themselves to play, there's no outlet. So the outlet becomes food. And so many of my listeners or my clients will say to me, it's almost like the only joy in my life is food. Well, if I can't eat whatever I want when I want, then what pleasure have I got? And it's like, that's exactly where I was many years ago. And through developing that better relationship with yourself and how you show up for yourself and reconnecting in with that joy helps you change your relationship with food, because you don't need that crutch. You don't need any crutch, whether it's food, whether it's shopping, whether it's alcohol. You don't need it because you found the joy, you've got it back.
And I think you're so right. And I think there's, especially for us women, I think, there's so many challenges out there in terms of this is what you should look like, and this is convention, and this is what femininity looks like, and everything like that. For your listeners that have never met me, I'm a pretty short little lesbian who rocks up to these events now wearing a pair of shorts and a jumper because that's me. But if I rewind 10 years ago, I'm the fittest I've been because I exercise. My relationship with food has really shifted and changed as I've grown and changed. And I think the thing is, it's about understanding, as you rightly say, it's so easy to look outwards to try and find external validation, or I should be looking like that, or I should do this, or I should do that. And rather than going in and doing our own work, we then end up getting caught up and sidetracked with, as you say, food, booze, addictions, or whatever it might be. And actually, one of the things for me about allowing laughter is that even in my darkest times, and I have had some seriously dark times in my life, there's always tiny little moments where there's a little giggle. And that giggle might be 2 seconds, and the rest of my day might have been as dark as anything. But that 2 seconds is as true as the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And you're so right, because if we work out, okay, what's really going on? Food is the distraction, in my humble experience. Food, booze, gambling, whatever thing that doesn't serve us, over-exercising, under-exercising, whatever it is, they're the distractions, because what we don't want to do is hold a mirror up and go, who are we and what makes us tick? And how do I get to that place where I can be predominantly content? Because you can't always be joyful because that's too high a level. And you can't always be depressed because that's too low a level. But if you're aiming in life to be really content and full of wonderment and joy and excitement, then that's surely a good place for our lives to be. And I think as soon as we get to that place where if food or anything else is kind of right at the forefront of our heads, it's like, well, actually, that's just a distraction because I'm actually really scared about going, I don't really want to deal with my trauma, or I don't want to deal with the stuff that I've experienced. And so then suddenly it's really easy just to go, well, it's all about food. It's all about food. And it's like, it's not though. Just be gentle. And it's brilliant that there are people like you doing amazing work where you just are gentle and just go, okay, take a step back. Let's think about it from a different perspective. And putting different things in, really good positive distractions, like one day every month, have is your play day. And you just put a play day in your diary and you go and have a day playing, whatever that looks like for you. If you know you've got that on that day, I bet you won't care quite so much about food. Unless, of course, you're in horrible bad addiction. Yeah.
No, it's true because, people say, oh, yeah, actually, I didn't think about food that much over the weekend. And it's like, oh, well, that's because you were having such a lovely time. So, yeah, absolutely. If you could give 1, 2, or maybe even 3 tips to the listeners that they could just apply to their lives immediately, then what would they be? And I think you've probably just shared one, which is the one I took away from last time we met about having that play day. Any tips you would like to share?
Yes. I mean, firstly, that one, if you don't put play in your diary, it will not happen because life is too busy. And so actually putting it in your diary, and quite often people go, yeah, but then it's a bit forced, and forced things don't work. They're going to work a lot more than never doing them at all. As you then do it, you will then go, that was really fun. So then you're far more likely to start doing it more often. And eventually you might get to a place where you're just playing all the time in a really good way. So then you don't need to diarize it so much. So there's definitely that one. The second thing, when it comes down to play, is what I would hate is for people, your lovely listeners, to go away with this going, oh, I've got to play. And then still in their heads going, don't really know how to play. This is pointless, because then you're not playing. You're then playing at playing. So actually, for me, one of the main things, in order to access that part of you that is okay playing, it's like writing down, literally take 2 minutes, get a cup of tea or coffee, and just write down, okay, what are 10 things that if I let my younger self go, I'd love to do that, what would be the 10 things that they'd be? And you might go, ooh, I didn't know I wanted to try pottery, or whatever it might be. And then just let yourself try them, not with the expectation that you are signing up for life, that this is how you're going to play, but try them with an openness and a curiosity that if you were talking to a child, you would say, oh, well, just go and try it. Because we all say it to kids, right? Even if you don't have kids yourself. when we're getting our kids to try different things, we're all very good at going, well, just give it a go. Whereas adults, well, I've got to get it right. But how do you know you're going to get it right? Go just try it. Go be open. So I recently just did that myself because I was like, okay. So I just learned how to ride a motorcycle. And it was so, well, terrifying in one way. There's the whole thing of the fear about being on a motorcycle for the first time. But I went with just a curiosity to go and experience it to see if I liked it. And I didn't know whether I was going to like it or not. And I did. So I've now got a motorcycle, and then that's just led to whole new different adventures and really cool things that I never knew was going to happen because I started with that curiosity. Had I gone there going, I already know I'm not going to like it, wouldn't have liked it. It's as simple as that. So go just try things that you've written down, but try them with an open heart. And stuff that you liked as a kid, you might not like now. Stuff that you like as an adult might surprise you. But surely that's the point of living. That's the stuff that when you go into work on a Monday, you go, oh, I tried this weekend. I went and did some graffiti painting. It was awful. But everybody was like, oh, you did graffiti painting. That's the stories. That's the nectar of life, right? And then for me, the final bit is that we all have somebody in our life that makes us giggle. We all have one of those friends that's just one of those good old people that just make us chuckle. And because life is so busy and life is so challenging, one of the things that I see with people that I work with, they're like, oh, I don't see my friends enough. And, make a point, phone them. Yeah, old school, phone them. And just phone them. And you might be the one that makes other people giggle. So if that's your job, if you're naturally someone a bit more like me, then you phone one of your mates and make them giggle and just have that shared laughter on a more regular basis. Because if you do that, again, that's as true as you having a really tough day afterwards where everything goes wrong and the price of living is so expensive and it's too hot and da-da-da-da. But you might have had, like I did this morning with one of my really good mates, a proper belly laugh. That has set me up for the whole of today. And I really love what I do. So it's just that thing of allowing yourself that space to laugh, not just when it's on the weekend, you go to a pub, and not just if you're going to a comedy show, So it's allowing these pockets of joy, play, and wonder.
Yeah, beautiful. I remember you saying now that you diary in time to speak to your friend to make sure you do that to set yourself up for the week. And I thought that's a great idea. Yeah. Love it. Brilliant. Okay, great. Thank you. I've got another question for you. What would you tell your younger self?
I think I would tell, if I was talking to my sort of, 15, 16, 17-year-old self, I think I'd be like, you're going to be okay, Em, and you are going to make it. You're going to, because I think my 15-year-old self was pretty convinced that I would be dead by the time I was 21. And it was quite close at certain points. And I think if I looked back at my 15-year-old self, I'd be like, you are so much braver than you realize. And the choices that you're making right now are the ones that mean that you can survive this not particularly fun childhood and carry on making them. And actually, you will be the biggest gift to me as an older self, because you are full of bravery and strength and resourcefulness, which has led me to where I'm at now. So I'd say thank you. And I'd also put my arm around her and go, it's all right, it's going to get a whole lot better. And actually, your life is going to be sort of back to front. So whereas most people have childhoods, which is full of hopefully good things and play and wonder, actually, I'm going to spend my entire adult life relearning how to do that and then sharing it around the world. So what a gift.
Beautiful. I love that. I think sometimes we really discount how powerful we are as young people when we look back and we think of all, like you say, the decisions you make that lead you to where you are today. Yeah, lovely. Okay, thank you. Wow, I'm lost for words because I'm in awe of you. I just love what you do, and I think it's so, as I say, it was so powerful to experience it for myself at the Festival. I know there's people out there listening that are probably thinking, wow, who is this lady? How do I connect with her? So how can people find you?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Thank you for your very kind words. It's a journey, and I think that's the thing. I've really been on it, and and I always find it deeply humbling where it just lands, because all we do is make choices, right? And that's the thing. And so people want to find me. All the stuff about me is on emstroud.com. So emstroud.com. And it's like, it's my name. It's my website. It's very exciting. And then I've got a podcast. Like you, I have a podcast. It's called Clowning Around. And it's a podcast to make you laugh and think. So there's over 100 episodes up, and everything from clowning around therapy to clowning around fitness to clowning around music to clowning around technology, consciousness, like loads, so it's lots of fun. And then I've got a book which you can get on Amazon, soon to be in other places and soon to be on Audible, but I've got to record it first, kids, because I haven't had time to do it. And my book is called Lessons from a Clown: How to Have Courage to Show Up for Yourself Every Day and Laugh Every Day.
Fantastic. Brilliant. I can't wait for it to be on Audible. I'm a big Audible fan. I have I'm trying to stop myself saying I don't read. I don't like reading.
Yeah.
So I've got to stop saying that, because actually I do enjoy reading, but I just find it easier to listen. So self-talk, so important.
Isn't it? And isn't it amazing when we catch ourselves and we're like, oh no, I do like reading. It's just I like being read to. That's it.
Yeah. I've got this thing now. I go, erase. I didn't say it.
Nice.
Brilliant. And obviously I will pop your links in the show notes and some info about you, but I'm sure people will be in touch and want to connect. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time this morning. Great. Well, I'm going to leave you to enjoy this warm weather. So I will say thank you again, and say thank you to our listeners. That's it for today, guys. Don't forget to reach out to us. I love hearing from you, and I'm sure Em would love to hear from you as well. Hearing how these podcasts are inspiring you to make changes in your life is always really heartwarming, and it enthuses me to carry on and start recording the next one. Thank you for listening. And finally, as always, there are thousands of people out there struggling with not only their relationship with food, but just their relationship with themselves and life in general. So if you think this podcast can help, then please do share it with them. And spread the joy, and let's all create a peaceful relationship with food together. So thank you, guys. Have a great week, day, wherever you are in the world, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.